All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Joining me at this time, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. How is it feeling right now as up there on Rocky Top?
I mean, it's electric. It's wild. They're back this week. You're not going to believe this, but the network that has poured a lot of money into a particular conference is going back to a top 10 matchup this weekend over another big-time matchup that has another network, a rival network, if you will, has poured a lot of money into the success and brand that is that other network. So people
you've confused me. You got to tell me who you're talking about.
Okay, well, people were upset that that Tennessee and Alabama is getting game day and not Michigan and Penn State.
Oh, well, I mean,
two top 10 matchups, and they were you've already been to Tennessee.
They haven't been to Tennessee, and I think because it's Tennessee, game day couldn't trust them to take care of business, right? So they're like, look, Tennessee's undefeated. Florida's coming to town. This is a big one. We can't trust that Tennessee's going to go undefeated and this Alabama game is still going to be as big. But yeah. Alabama, Tennessee, I mean, this is way bigger. Like, all due respect to Michigan, Penn State, like, if Alabama's coming into a game, I mean, I've seen different things. Earlier in the day, I saw like 17-point favorite. Now I've seen like 6.5, 7.5. So like,
well, most I'm
not exactly sure. Yeah,
I've seen around 8.
Alabama comes into a game on the road as not a double-digit favorite. This is clearly the biggest game of the week.
And we don't really know. The line's going to keep moving because Bryce Young is still very much up in the air. Like, if Bryce gets ruled out, I mean, the one thing I will just go ahead and just hammer it right now is the money line on Tennessee. Just go ahead and take that. Like, if you have not already jumped on that, go ahead and do that out of the gate here. But I don't know, man. Well, I mean, Matt Green, we will get into my picks over the weekend, but I'm pretty certain that I've already wrapped this dang thing up for this year, because if my math is correct when I was watching yesterday, and also shout out to my parents who are going to listen to this tomorrow. They quote me when we watch games. Now they came up for the weekend to watch Tennessee, LSU, and do some other stuff up here on the farm and stuff. And they mentioned certain things. I'm saying, they're like, yeah, you picked blank, or you said this to Matt, or they apparently referred to someone as a Debbie Downer, and my mom didn't like that because my mother is named Debbie, and there's like a bad connotation with like Debbie Downer. So like every word I am saying on this very program, Matt Green, is being carefully analyzed.
So did I say Debbie Downer? Did you say Debbie Downer?
I said Debbie Downer. Apparently,
your own mother, sir.
Hey, it's a betrayal unlike any other. But shout out to my mom, who this is completely off topic, but I'd never heard of this. My mother has been on this planet for nearly 60 years and got stung by a yellow jacket on her tongue today, driving home, eating a barbecue sandwich.
She was driving while eating a barbecue sandwich?
No, they stopped for lunch and got at a barbecue place. There was a lot. They ate outside, and apparently there was a yellow jacket problem, but one of the yellow jackets found its way into her barbecue sandwich, and she got stung on her tongue by a yellow jacket. So I
remember there was some video we saw in health class, but first of all, I hope your mom gets better. You know,
she's on Benadryl. She's I think better. She's been sleeping, but she said it still hurts. I don't really know what you do. It's not fun. It sounds awful.
But I remember there was some video in like health class we watched in like, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, where like a kid drank like a soda can and had like a yellow jacket or something inside it, and it like stung his mouth, and then he had like an allergic reaction or something. And I feel like it was like a low-key fear of mine for like picking up a can of soda like outside. Like, I don't know. I vividly remember that video in health class.
I don't think we ever watched that video, and we both went to the same county. So I'm trying to think, did I miss this? Did I sleep through this video? Because I'm certain that Gwinnett County, there was a lot of stuff that we all watched together.
That's just the higher level of education you get at an institution like North Gwinnett High School. You know, I guess that's what that is.
Maybe.
Although I think that was Lanier Middle School at that point. which is currently the high school. Where I went to middle school became Lanier High School.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then they built a North Gwinnett Middle School, so yeah.
I never knew that.
Huh. Yeah, fun fact for you.
I also didn't realize that Warren Burrell went to North Gwinnett, the cornerback who we've had for the last 3 years, who we've been annoyed by. Get well soon, Warren Burrell. But did not even realize it because I was looking up some stuff. I'm like, North Gwinnett? I didn't realize he went to North Gwinnett. But yeah.
It's a factory, man. Lose track of all the players coming out of North these last decade or so, really.
You're just a northern guy.
So few go to Georgia, though. Warren Erickson right now is backup center for Georgia, but so few of them go to Georgia, it feels like. Like Barrett Carter at Clemson, Mitch Hyatt was big time, went to Clemson. They seem to go all over the place, but rarely to Georgia.
Maybe they just don't want to be Bulldogs all over again. They're Bulldogs in high school. They don't want to do it all over
Maybe Jared Cook, like CJ Uzoma. There's a lot of them. None of them pick Georgia, or very rarely do they pick Georgia. I can't really. Devondre Seymour, Richard Seymour's. I don't know if he was his son or his nephew. I think he may have been his nephew, but he never played after his freshman year at Georgia, medically disqualified or something like that. But he's one of the few that actually picked Georgia coming out of high school.
Well, there might be a reason behind that one, with his uncle's lineage, one of the best Georgia Bulldogs of all time.
NFL Hall of Famer.
NFL Hall of Famer, that's right. You had a North thing, man. You're not a Stark, but you could be. North Gwinnett, North Georgia, just all North all the time.
That's true. NG, both of them for sure.
NG. You should get that tattooed, man. NG, Matt G, MG, and oh man, I'm just doing all of this. NG, MG. That's tough to say fast. Well, don't forget, folks, you can check out this show each and every day here on the Blue Wire Pod Network by checking us out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a first-time listener, please make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode here on the program. This is a daily show, so all kinds of great stuff each and every day. But on Monday mornings, guess what? Yeah, college football recap show right here for you in your podcast app of choice. Check us out on YouTube as we continue growing out the YouTube page, youtube.com/ChaseThomasPodcast. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff over there. You can also email this very program at chasethomaspodcast@gmail.com. Follow Matt at Matt_W_Green. Follow myself at Chase_Thomas. Matt, we have a new AP poll. You mentioned the big one this weekend with 2 top 10 teams. Tennessee remains perfect, 5-0. We'll get into that matchup over the weekend. Alabama also remains perfect over the weekend. So we have a little bit of a shakeup atop the AP Top 25 poll, where I think it's a lot more settled, I think, than a week ago. There's not a lot of complaints, and you kind of get towards the end of the poll, and you're like, man, we're kind of if you have a problem with Illinois getting the 24th spot or James Madison, you look behind him, it's like, are you sure North Carolina is the 25th? Like, you're really just I don't know. It's a little much if you're getting upset or hot and bothered like some folks were a week ago about the AP Top 25. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Well, I had to eat my own words, not on the podcast, but me and my brother were texting back and forth on Saturday night, as we all saw Texas A&M nearly upset Alabama, and I'm thinking, Georgia got punished for their close loss at Missouri, but I guarantee Alabama's not going to get punished. They're going to be like, oh, A&M, this is a tough A&M team, Alabama got in a dogfight, quality win. But I was incorrect, so I stood corrected. Alabama dropped from 1 to 3 after a victory. I would venture to say that's the first time ever under Nick Saban that Alabama has won and dropped from dropped 2 spots. I feel like Georgia's dropped after winning as number 1, I think, multiple times in my life. I think they were number 4 that year with Matthew Stafford after they're starting 5-0 after being preseason number 1, just because they didn't look the most impressive. But so I do have to eat my own words there. So Georgia's back at top at number 1, and Ohio State jumped to number 2. And then we got the Tennessee Volunteers creeping up there to number 6. I feel like there's really been a big 5 in the rankings all year. We've kind of, I think most people kind of think Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are a level above everybody else. But Michigan and Clemson, I think, have been that solid 4 and 5 each week. Clemson probably getting more and more solid as the year goes on. But Tennessee now getting up there to number 6, I feel like that's real interesting. And this is like what I told you before the season started. Tennessee's season is already a success now, in my opinion. Starting 5-0 and just having College game day, come to Neyland Stadium, have all this hype around the Alabama game. Like that's half of the battle in building a program back. It's just playing these marquee games and just have people talking about your program, have just this electric vibe around the city, have all these recruits have the number one game in college football that all the recruits want to be at. Like the season is already a success, I think, in terms of what Tennessee's done so far. Obviously, they could lose 3 more games. If they go 9-3, lose to Alabama and Georgia's probably still expected at this point, but not nearly as much of a foregone conclusion as it was thought at the start of the season. But they could still lose 3 games, and you've seen like tangible progress that you can get excited for as a Tennessee fan. So love seeing the Vols up there at number 6. And then Penn State going from unranked now into the top 10. I think these teams we have right now in the top 10, with the exception of Ole Miss, I think all of those teams seem like very solid like contenders here. Like at this point, like these all seem like playoff contenders. Like with all due respect to Kentucky, like we saw Kentucky get up to like number 8. Like we've seen like Iowa get up to number 2 last year, even Oregon at 2 or 3, and it was just like, okay, we're all waiting for these teams to lose. Like they're not legit contenders. But you should look at all the teams in there. I think all 3 teams at the top of the Big Ten, I think they're all serious contenders. You look at, even go to 11. USC and UCLA look like legit contenders coming out of the Pac-12, and even Oklahoma State. Like I think TCU is a little lower there, and we'll obviously talk more about TCU in a minute, but even Oklahoma and TCU, like there just seems to be like a lot of solid contenders, and I love to see this because I'm skeptical about going to the 12-team playoff to begin with. So seeing a year like this where we're only 5-6 games in, but there's already a good number of contenders out in college football right now.
And how would it be? Who gets buys in the 12-team model that they've thrown out?
So the top 4 would get buys.
Okay, so then
that 5, 6, 7, 8 would all get home playoff games.
And that would be like you get Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, and Stillwater. That would be cool. USC hosting Penn State, Tennessee hosting UCLA.
Well, right now we'd be looking at what? We'd be looking at Michigan hosting Oregon in the first round, Tennessee hosting UCLA. Yeah, that'd be incredible. USC hosting Ole Miss, or am I looking at that wrong? USC hosting Penn State.
Hosting Penn State, yeah.
I'm skeptical because like we just have this, this view of what college football is. Like the regular season is so important. You got to go almost perfect to win a national championship. But man, let's not act like just seeing all of these teams, and we never play each other. You know, it's like we get to see these games like Oklahoma, Florida in the Sugar Bowl, and all the key players are out, and it's just the game doesn't matter. So it's nice. I'm gonna be excited to start to see some of these games. But yeah, there's just a lot of teams up there at the top that I feel like I'm just interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, there's one team I'll go ahead and circle, Texas being at 22. I don't think they were ranked last week. So I think they're going to continue to rise, and we'll get more into that. I would say the one to look out for that I think is most – Oklahoma State just picking up right where they left off last year and really having no letdown after missing the playoff this past year in just horrific circumstances, just being stopped 1 yard short. I think Mike Gundy deserves all the credit in the world for getting them to bounce back up and just pretend like nothing happened and be 5-0 to this point and be the leaders in the Big 12. I'm not sure when Penn State or Oklahoma State and TCU play, but that is going to be a lot of fun. And I will say too, and I'm curious about, you mentioned 4 and 5 that Michigan and Clemson have been locked in there for a while, and I agree. I would just be curious, what the line would be for Tennessee and Michigan on a neutral site. because Michigan has not played a soul yet, and they're getting a lot of credit for what they're doing to this point. And look, Michigan might be really good. Blake Corum's legit, but they have still just played absolute. It's something we said before the season. It's like we're not really going to know what Michigan is for a long time, and I think people have just been penciling them in. And I'll mention this.
Well, we got
Tennessee.
Penn State this week, right?
Yes, so we'll learn a lot this week, but I mean, their schedule by and large is a pretty manageable schedule. Where we like they're going to walk into 10-2 at the very least. And Clemson passing some tests, but we still just wait and see. It's like you're still just waiting for the bottom to fall out for whatever reason with Clemson. But I would still say right now Tennessee is a better team than Michigan, just because we've seen more, and I think they actually should be ahead of Michigan. Like, you could sell me on Clemson staying ahead of Tennessee right now, but I think based on Tennessee's resume versus what Michigan has done to this point, Tennessee's won 3 games against top 25 teams already to start this year, and they're the only team in FBS to do that. The only one. So, I mean, that is it's a big deal right now, and I just think it's early in the season, so you're really splitting hairs here, but I would put Tennessee over Michigan and put them at 5.
Yeah, I think you could definitely make that argument. I mean, you saw like Michigan, like Harbaugh, they used the first 3 games as like practice, essentially figure out who their quarterback was. So yeah, this schedule's been real soft. It's definitely going to start to pick up here. And then your other question of Oklahoma TCU is going to be fun. That's also this weekend.
Is it really this week too? I don't
know. So that's going to be. It's an awesome slate with TCU, Oklahoma State. Who were we just talking about? Michigan, Penn State, and Alabama, Tennessee. There's some huge ones this week for sure. And then also 2 things. Is it a little like, obviously we're going to be accused of being like the biggest Kentucky haters in the world, but I feel like losing without Will Levis, putting him down 9 spots feels a little harsh. Like unless he's still out, and I don't know how long Will Levis is supposed to be out for. But I don't know. It feels, I mean, I don't think they're much better than the 20th ranked team in the country. So having them down at 22, I don't necessarily disagree with. But I don't know. I felt dropping them 9 spots. South Carolina's not a good team, but without their with their backup quarterback, it's a little tough. And then, and shout out to James Madison, 5 games ever in the FBS, and they're already ranked. So that's crazy.
They're the only FBS team to never lose an FBS game. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Still haven't lost an FBS game.
So at least they got that going for them. I remember a few years back, the first year of 7A, I was covering Pinecrest Academy, was playing Discovery at home. And it couldn't have been more than like the 2nd or 3rd game of the season. And this coach, I interviewed the Pinecrest Academy won. They're like a single A private school, beat 7A Discovery. And the coach made a big deal, like, you write in the paper that that's the first single A team to ever beat a 7A school. And so I go to my editor, I'm like, he said this is the first time that's ever happened. Is that true? He's like, well, yeah, this is like the 2nd week that 7A has even existed. So yeah, I'm sure it's probably true. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, shout out to James. The Monarchs, is that there? Is that
no, Bulldogs.
Who's Old Dominion? Are they the Monarchs? That's who I'm getting those confused. ODU, JMU, something like that. But yeah, and Illinois back in the top 25 as well. So it's been an interesting year. A lot of teams getting ranked a lot of different new teams getting ranked in the top 25.
Absolutely. Matt Green, do you have your Green Line stat of the weekend for us?
I do have my Green Line stat of the weekend, and it goes with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Obviously, we saw them narrowly escape an upset at home to Texas A&M, and it got me thinking of how many one-loss games Alabama's had, or one-score games Alabama's had recently. So in 2021 and so far half of the 2022 season, not even half because they're probably going to end up playing 14, 15 games like they usually do, they've had 16 games versus Power 5 competition, and 8 games they either lost or won by 1 score. So half of their games versus Power 5 competition in the last season and a half have been 1-score games, or Georgia beat them by 2 scores, but still lost in that one. You got to go, if you go from 2017 to 2020, 4-year span, they played 46 Power 5 opponents to have 8 that were decided by one score or they lost. So the last 16 games was the same number of one-score games as the previous 46 before that. So something about, obviously they were playing with their backup quarterback, but there's just something about Alabama. Like, they still might be the number 1 team in the country. They still might win the national championship, but they're clearly not at the just dominant level of invincibility that they were once at. And so there's a lot more good teams left on this schedule. So it'll be interesting to see if they can run the table this year.
For sure. I think of the 3, I've said this for weeks now, and I mean, we'll see. Ohio State of the big 3 looks the most daunting of a team to beat once on any given Saturday. Right now, I think Ohio State's my number 1, Georgia 2, Bama 3. Of the 3, if I had to really rank it and be most stunned by any team sneaking up and getting them in the playoff or whoever, that's where I'm at, and I think Bama looks beatable.
That might be true, but it's kind of like you were talking about with Michigan. Like, Ohio State, it feels like they've just kind of been sleepwalking. Like, each week, have we picked their game on the pick'em since week 1 versus Notre Dame? It's like, it's, what are they playing? A bunch of
they're at Michigan State
group of
week.
5 schools, and then, Rutgers and Michigan State. Wisconsin isn't just a pushover school, but obviously they fired their head coach and things aren't going very well, which more details have emerged around the recruiting and the things that are going on with Wisconsin. So maybe that firing is a little more understandable. But Ohio State, and you heard, I don't know if you heard on College Game Day this week, Desmond Howard throwing some shade at Ohio State, basically saying, when are they going to join the rest of college football and start playing like FBS games, essentially? And then the whole set is like, you're talking about Michigan here, bro. Like, Michigan hasn't played anybody. Yeah. So as much as it does feel like Ohio State hasn't really, we haven't really been talking about any of their games week in and week out, and then they got another one with Iowa this week that they should probably dominate. I feel like I just have no idea who Ohio State is. Other than just feeling pretty confident on how good their personnel is and just seeing with the eye test how much they dominate everybody, I don't, with the level of competition they've played so far, it's hard to say they're a clear number 1 ahead of Georgia or Alabama to this point.
I guess for me, it's just the most complete. They fixed the defense with Jim Knowles. That was just such a big hiring for them, and the defense looks really good. I think they've won every single game by double digits to this point. They haven't had a stinker yet, and I don't know. I'm waiting for a sign of mortality, I don't know. I just haven't seen it with Ohio State yet. I've seen just chinks in the armor with Georgia and Alabama to this point. I just haven't seen it to Ohio State. It doesn't mean it won't come. It just means that I haven't seen it yet.
No, I think that's fair, and I think Georgia and I think Alabama both played tougher schedules to this point, but Missouri and Texas A&M were not 2 of those tougher games, and both of those teams nearly beat Georgia and Alabama. So, I would definitely – I'll agree with you there, even though Rutgers and Wisconsin, and even Notre Dame in week 1, they had no idea where their offense was. They're starting to pick it up, but they looked awful the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, but we shall see. We shall see. Matt Green, this is going to be my favorite segment week over week in this fall regular season, I think, just based on how things are going. But my guess, when I was doing the math on how my pick'em went this past week, I think I had a pretty good weekend in our picks and predictions for week 6. Am I correct in that assessment?
You did, sir. You had a pretty good weekend, as Larry David would say. So I'll start with my weekend. I had a very solid 8-3 performance overall, but 5-6 against the spread, which is tough. You, on the other hand, went 7-4 against the spread, which is probably not as good as you thought, but that's because you went a perfect 11-0 overall, sir. So I gotta give you a little applause for that one. 11-0, perfect overall for week 6, Zeus had LSU as his home dog for the second time this season. They let him down this time and absolutely got boat raced by the Tennessee Volunteers.
He had it coming.
So Zeus is now, what does that make it? 2-4 on the season with his home dog. Not giving the people winners out there as much as he was a year ago. But on the year, you are 52-17 overall. A 10-game lead on me. I'm 42-27. You can start sounding the trumpets if you want, like the New York Mets. But the Braves, we got a hot streak in us, so don't count us out yet. And then against the spread, you are 35-32-2, and I am 30-37-2. So you got a 10-game lead overall and a 5-game lead against the spread. So things are looking good for Chase Thomas on the full ride pick'em we got going on.
I mean, 52-17.
And 35-32. 35-32-2 against the spread. If you're over 50% against the spread, I mean that's a success in my book.
I'm making money for folks, and just in your pick'em. I hope if you're in those survivor pools, you could ride and die with me this whole year, and you're going the distance in the ride or die with me. Like just if you're in a survival pick'em, listening to this, make sure you jot down my lock of the week each week, because that's how you easily win that office pool and show off your college football clairvoyance.
And not that I want to boost your ego any more than it already is.
Continue on. Yeah, this is great.
I'm going to read your week in, week out results so far this year. So you were 3-0 in week 0, 10-1 in week 1. Then you follow that up with 4 straight 7-4s, and then an 11-0 here in week 6. So
no stinkers.
Yeah. Overall, you've been big time every week. Against the spread, that's a little tougher, but overall, you've been killing it.
I mean, that's the thing. Like you said, you want to be a little bit over 50% if you can get there. But the ATS, man, because like if anyone was like significantly over the spread, like they're making a heck of a lot of money, and they're not doing pods and everything else. They're living lavishly in some deserted island at this moment.
Hey, your boy was 84-67-3 against the spread last year. So. I gotta boost my credibility a little bit this year, just so people out there, if they just started listening in 2022, so they know I do kind of know what I'm talking about sometimes.
No, you don't have a losing record. It's not like that. Like you said.
No, I do have a losing record against the spread.
No, I mean I'm talking about your pick'em, like the main thing, which I think is the more important thing. The more important one is the pick'em.
That's fair.
And if you're under 500, several weeks into the season on the pick'em, like you shouldn't be hosting a college football program. You got to get out of here. Get them out of there. But yeah, well, where are we going first, Matt Green? Or is that what do we decide? Am I the one on the recap show leading us, or
recap? That's up to you, man.
All right, let's get started with TCU. They win at Kansas, where game day was this weekend. Fun atmosphere. Fun game, but this was also on at the same time Tennessee and LSU was, so I had to watch this back later. But seeing the highlights during the game, it was like, oh, this is back and forth, and it was about what you expected. And if you're a Kansas fan and TCU fan, this is what you wanted, especially if you're a Big 12 fan as a whole. You're the commentator, like, this is fun that this is happening. And it was happening at the same time as OU Texas. A lot of big games were out of the way all at noon, which I didn't really like. But first half, both defenses showed up. I mean, this looked like it was going to be a low-scoring game. Jalen Daniels had a rough fumble at the goal line that resulted in TCU responding, going 99 yards and scoring a touchdown, which is extremely impressive by Sonny Dykes' bunch. And then Daniels got knocked out for the second half of this game. Bean came in, their backup. It was good. He had a 16 of 24 for 262, 4 TDs. In a limited amount of action, so it really wasn't the reason that Kansas did not ultimately pull this one off. It was just they could not get a stop late when they needed one, when Quentin Johnson had an absolutely nasty touchdown grab in the back of the end zone late in the fourth from Max Duggan, who had another big-time game for the Horned Frogs to seal it. What did you make of the Frogs staying undefeated and giving Lance Leipold his first loss this season at Kansas?
Yeah, that was a ridiculous catch in the back of the end zone. You said Quentin Johnson
Quentin
that made
Johnson,
that one. Yeah, it was disappointing to see Jalen Daniels get hurt in this one. I wasn't sure how much that affected the game since, like you said, Jason Bean did play so well when he came in. But yeah, I mean, you had to be impressed with TCU. Just going on the road, like Kansas is still, I feel like, not one of the best teams in the Big 12, but this team this year has looked very good, and you gotta credit going into just an absolute rowdy environment. Like this is just the loudest Lawrence, Kansas is ever going to be for a football game probably. And it was a big time win. Max Duggan, I feel like I was really impressed with how he played. And yeah, TCU Oklahoma State, I'm excited for that one. I think those look like the two best teams in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, and I cannot wait for that this weekend. It's going to be a good one. But look, man, Max Duggan, an amazing story. Wasn't supposed to start, has been there forever. Grinded, been great. And Jalen Daniels stuck around at Kansas, who was another Mater Day. What is it? Is it just Mater Day or
Mater Day High School?
Yeah. He's in Mater
Max
Day guy.
Duggan's a Mater Day guy?
No, Jalen Daniels is. And so
okay.
is JT Daniels. So I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Matt Barkley, I think, was a Mater Day.
So, I mean, great story, but Kansas was not going to go undefeated. I think the better team won this one. The Horned Frogs, man, that offense is fun. They have a lot of big play threats. They kind of remind me a little bit of Tennessee when you watch them. They had a really big screen action in this one. They do a lot of fun stuff, and they really stretch you vertically, and they really put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. Like, they're a really tough team to keep down, and Sonny Dykes has that thing humming right out of the gate. But I have something for you that should warm the Horned Frog fans' hearts. Gary Patterson, who I don't know if you remember, is a analyst, assistant to the head coach, some kind of deal with the Texas Longhorns now. He was interviewed after the Texas win over Oklahoma, and he was just interviewed, and he asked about the TCU game following the win. The dude still bleeds purple and black. So shout out to Gary Patterson, even after going out in a really rough, awkward way where he was kind of forced out. And I think, doesn't he have a statue at TCU?
I was about to say, you got a statue there. You can never be disconnected from there. You're always that's always the prime years of your career.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's cool though that he went out of his way to ask and check up on his frogs. So I'm glad he still loves his TCU Horned Frogs, because hey, GOAT TCU coach, and that's cool. Matt Green, next up, my favorite. You're not gonna believe this. The Tennessee Volunteers crushed the LSU Tigers. Zeus, unfortunately, and yourself did not see the light. It was one of those unfortunate things where people just needed to see it. They were still waiting for the bottom to fall out for these Vols. Like, oh, we've heard Tennessee is back before. The Vols are back. Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see it. And it's like, oh, now they're just 5-0. And now this seems like the game where a lot of folks have just kind of, not just Tennessee fans, but I think national folks have been like, okay, this Tennessee team is legit. Like, to beat Pitt, Florida, and LSU, regardless of what you think about this current iteration of LSU, it's still always going to be tough to go into Death Valley and win that game. Like, that is a tough place to play, and Tennessee showed up. Like, it's one of those things when you're now a top 10 team, and they were coming into this one, to just kind of look ahead to Alabama and just be like, man, Alabama is, we have them at home next week. This could be two undefeated teams, and really overlook a LSU team like this. And that's not what happened. Like, Heupel deserves a lot of credit, and Brent Hubbs of VolQuest put this really well, and I think it's an under-talked about aspect of who Josh Heupel is as a head coach, which is that, like, his teams get up for every single game. Like, there are no slow starts. Like, out of the gate here, LSU fumbles the opening kickoff. The Vols jump on it, touchdown early. They're up 10-0 early, big punt return. He puts D. Williams in his first game as a Tennessee Volunteer. He's been out all year. First FBS game as a college football player coming in from JUCO. He almost has a punt return touchdown on his first punt return. So it's a lot of faith to put him back there, and he gets tripped up by the LSU punter at the last possible moment. I mean, Tennessee was just ready to go. Like, they I think it's a testament to him to be able to get these guys up for these big games week over week when they haven't been there. None of these guys have been in this spot before, and it's easy when you start rising up the charts the way Tennessee has, and you're getting all these people telling you have the best offense, you're this, you're that, to kind of take for granted where you're at, and you overlook a team like LSU on the road at noon. And they were like, nope, we're starting off hot, and we're burying them early. And I think Heupel deserves a lot of credit, but the fact that this one just – Tennessee is in a different phase is the best way I would put it. Where last year, something I talked about coming into this game where I was like, the reason I was pretty certain that Tennessee would win this game big, and I think this was one where I got the spread and this, was just that, like, the problem against Florida that LSU did not present was just Anthony Richardson would stay in the pocket, and he was finding Ricky Pearsall and Justin Shorter and guys downfield. They had a passing attack. They were able to attack this Tennessee secondary, and Anthony Richardson was very, very hard to bring down. He was not getting sacked. He was having dudes thrown at him, and he was just getting incompletions when they should have been sacks. Jaden Daniels wasn't that guy. He took 5 sacks in this one. He was pressured a bunch. He is just not that guy. They did not fall victim to the mistakes that Tennessee made again in the big games they lost last year, where Matt Corral was converting every 3rd and 15 by a QB scramble. Emory Jones at Florida was converting every 3rd and 12, 4th and 8. Like, they kept finding ways to convert where they just found spots moving with their legs. That's not what Jalen Daniels did in this one. And I think Tennessee deserves a lot of credit for cleaning that up. They're just disciplined, and the pass rush is real. Like, they're doing a lot of cool stunts. Like, Joshua Josephs had a big sack in this one. Rodney Gardner has just put in an amazing amount of work with this defensive line. I think the linebackers still leave a lot to be desired. The secondary's weak, but he's rotating like 11, 12 dudes deep, and they're all playing really well. And I think that's it's an under-talked about part of who Tennessee is now at this point with their defense, is that you can't run on Tennessee. And that's something that I think is important to talk about too, is that Tennessee, I mean, they're not allowing any big plays like that. They're a bend, don't break. And I think it's huge as they get their 3rd top 25 victory on the season over number 25 LSU. 9 of the 11 highest graded ball defenders were defensive linemen in this game. That matters when guys like Christian Charles gets torched all game long, 6 receptions on 8 targets. I mean, it's huge. And also, no Cedric Tillman, great. Guess what? Jalen Hyatt's going to turn into a star. He had a humongous touchdown deep down the left seam. Dan Orlovsky, at one point in the game, did you see this? Diagrammed the Tennessee touchdown in the red zone where he calls this inside post to Jalen Hyatt. He literally diagrams what Jalen Hyatt should run there, and it's exactly what they call on the touchdown to Hyatt. But they ran the ball extremely well. Jabari Small was awesome. Hendon Hooker on those QB draws is damn near unstoppable. And the biggest thing, Tennessee, when you have a weak defense, and this is something that people overlook when they're like, oh, the defense. Like, a lot of the Georgia fans, Alabama fans, whoever, they're like, oh, but that defense. Here is something that you can do when you have a questionable secondary. You don't put your defense in holes. And that is what Tennessee never does. Hendon Hooker does not throw interceptions. He does not turn the ball over. He does not give opposing offenses short fields. Like, Tennessee's not doing that. They're not doing the boneheaded stuff that they did a couple times in the Pitt game to keep it from being a 30-point swing. Like, they have cleaned a lot of that up. And when you have a quarterback who's so efficient and just challenging teams downfield the way he is with 10 point whatever yards per attempt, it's just really, really hard to stop this group, and they're just humming on all accounts. And I mean, Tennessee is a top 5, top 6 team in the country right now, and you can do that if you're weak link against the secondary, it is what it is. But they have a lot of other excellent, efficient, damn near impossible weapons to stop, and this was without Cedric Tillman in the last 2 weeks. Brew McCoy had another big one. I think he had 7 catches for 140 yards. Like, they have weapons out the wazoo, and it's just, you're going to have to score 40 plus to beat this Tennessee team right now. What did you make of it, Matt Green? That's a lot I just threw at you.
So you threw a lot at me, exactly.
I had to get it off my chest. I've been storing it up.
The first thing I'll say is this is the statement win we were looking for from Tennessee. I think this is what we were looking for in the Florida game that was kind of keeping some people from jumping completely on the Tennessee bandwagon. Like, this wasn't the best Florida team that you beat by, 5 points or something, whatever it came down to. Mm-hmm. So this was a huge win to go into Death Valley. And what was the last time they won a road game for SEC West team? It was like 2008 or something, right? It wasn't that the super long streak. Mm-hmm. And I think that gets probably too much is made of that because literally half of their SEC West games since the expansion 2012 have been against Alabama. Mm. And if you look at it too, Tennessee has had some of the worst luck with SEC West rotations. Like, they got LSU back in 2011 when they played for a national championship. Like, they got they got Ole Miss. I know not Ole Miss. Auburn in 2013 when they played for a national championship. They got Ole Miss the year they were really good in 2014, like ranked top 5 or something. A&M even the year with Trevor Knight when they were undefeated. Like, Tennessee's had some bad luck on who they've gotten from the SEC West. But the one thing I have to push back, I'm gonna give you that this was like a big time win for Tennessee. Like, going into Death Valley is always big time. But the 3 wins over top 25 teams. Can we give them credit for that when none of those teams are currently ranked?
Wait, hold on.
You're saying Pitt, Florida, and LSU are all ranked teams,
yes,
right?
Yes, when they beat them.
But none of those teams are currently ranked. So I don't know how much.
Tennessee beat them.
Yeah, and they also lost to like 2 or 3 other teams.
Well, hold on. Florida won this past week against Mizzou.
Florida has how many losses? 2 or 3?
2.
They have 2. LSU has 2.
Utah. Yeah, LSU has 2.
Pitt has 2. The second to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
They're out of the top 25. That's all I'm saying. Not that I'm not trying to rain on the Tennessee fan parade, but the top 25 wins a little skewed. That's all I'll say here to this point. But
would you say at least 2 of those 3 will finish in the top 25 when it's all said and done this season?
I definitely wouldn't say that. I think I would probably think none of those teams will finish ranked. I mean, Pittsburgh, after losing to Georgia Tech, I mean, shout out to Brent Key, and Tech's got 2 straight wins now. But for them to lose to Georgia Tech, like, I don't know how bad you have to be to lose to Georgia Tech. So I could see Pittsburgh losing multiple times. LSU, I think they really haven't gotten into the meat of their schedule yet. They've obviously played Auburn and Tennessee and Mississippi State to this point. Like, they've played a couple of tough games, but they still have Alabama. They still have Arkansas. They still have, who else? Texas A&M on the schedule. Like, LSU could easily lose 2 more times, and like an 8-4 LSU team probably doesn't finish ranked. And same with Florida. I mean, they've lost twice already. Still have to play Georgia. Still have to play Texas A&M, Florida State. Even South Carolina is still on the schedule. So, like, I don't know. I don't know how many. Florida's losing at least 1 more time. Most likely 2 more times, I would say. So I would, if I were to bet, I would bet none of those teams finish ranked.
I don't know. We'll see. I have a fun Tennessee is back point too for you. You ready?
What's that?
So that was Tennessee's 4th win versus a ranked opponent for head coach Josh Heupel. That's the most wins over ranked teams in the first 2 seasons to start a UT career since Philip Fulmer had 4 from 92 to 93.
So you're telling me Heupel's the next Phil Fulmer?
I don't think he's the next Phil Fulmer, but there is someone who is a name redacted, who I won't say on this podcast, who compared him to another 90s great head coach that I think is, if you take away the personality aspect of it, you could sell.
We're talking Steve Spurrier right now?
We are talking about the Spurrier Florida
the fun
Renaissance.
and gun.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think. And honestly, like I said, Heupel and Steve have none of the same personality traits, but I think the offense, the explosion, where you're like, this is going to be sustainable for a while, and it's just going to annoy a lot of teams in the SEC for years to come, and it's fun and it attracts big-time players because they want to play in the system. I think that is I think it's a fair comparison. I think Spurrier's offense of renaissance in the SEC in the 90s, I think what Heupel's doing, I think it's fair. What do you think?
I can see some similarities there. It's hard to say just because what Heupel's doing isn't like radical. Like, yeah, maybe they're running the most plays, but it's not like a new thing to be running a lot of plays, you know? Like, Florida, I feel like what Florida and Steve Spurrier was doing, it was almost like Mike Leach, like the fun and gun. Who's the head coach with Kentucky when they started? Hal Mummy. Mm-hmm. That was some real like radical type stuff, just approaching the game completely differently. Like Spurrier was like ahead of his time with this, kind of an innovator and everything. Like as good as Heupel is, I can't give him that same level of like, innovation, just because we've seen so many of these high-powered offenses run a bunch of plays. Like, it's not necessarily a new thing. It's new that he's doing it at Tennessee, and they're really like they're one of the best offenses in the country. But Spurrier, that's a lofty comparison right there.
Lofty, but I mean it's trending very strong all across the board, and it's just. I can't say enough. Hendon Hooker's been the best quarterback in this conference this year, and I don't think it's particularly close. And I think that matters a great deal when you're trying to take that next step. When you have the best quarterback in today's football, I mean, it's just you're going to win a lot of games. And Hooker is just a warrior. He's got a big sack in this one. I will say the last thing on Tennessee LSU, there were some insane fourth down attempts by Brian Kelly in this one. He made some just absolutely insanity fourth down calls destroyed LSU.
I'm glad you said that because, I felt like, I mean, as good as well as Tennessee played, I felt like going 23-7 at the half, mm-hmm. LSU gifted Tennessee about 13 of those points mm-hmm. with the opening kickoff, fumbling it, then the next drive, I mean, a punt return is a play Tennessee made, right? So you can mm-hmm. give them credit for that, but that set them up for the next field goal. And then, like you said, right before the half, to go for it on fourth, like to not just take 20-7, like 20-7 going into the half, like with how poorly you played, like that's fine. Like just take that, go into the half down 2 touchdowns. To just give Tennessee the ball right there on their side of the 50, that was a terrible decision.
Yes, it was. But look, they did it, and LSU fans are a little uncomfortable about the state of the program with Brian Kelly at the moment. But we'll see. It's a long way to go, man.
Kelly's under like a weird pressure, I feel like nationally. Like this, people just became like Sam Pittman just made everyone become obsessed with culture. Oh yeah, the culture is just so important. Shane Beamer, no, winning games is important. Like Kirby Smart lost to Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech year one. Almost lost to Nicholls State. Like, year one is just not the time to make... Like, there's a reason things are bad. There's a reason he's here and as a new coach. It's because things were not good previously. So, this whole, like, his accent and, like, he doesn't fit the culture of LSU. Like, yeah, but Ed Orgeron does fit the culture better. He's also a terrible coach, and that's why you fired him 2 years after winning a national championship. Like, you could see it. So he wasn't a good coach before 2019, and he wasn't a very good coach after 2019. So, have the culture all you want. You got to have a good coach. You got to win games, and I trust Brian Kelly is going to get LSU going the right direction. So I hope people aren't overreacting to 4-2 his first 6 games. Like 4-2 is honestly pretty good considering this schedule in the first 6 games.
Yeah, you just want to get 7-5 and keep recruits happy.
You want to go to a bowl game and get those extra bowl practices and whatever, and start to bring in your own guys, and that's how you win. That's how you change the culture.
Next up, speaking of changing the culture, Brent Venables at Oklahoma just getting destroyed in 3 straight games. Matt Green, Texas, they. Couple crazy stats. First Sooners shutout since 1965 in the series. Ewers, I thought, was incredible in this one. He had a lot of fun big-time throws. He's a lot more mobile than you would think, but he threw for a career-high 289 yards, 21 of 31 through the air, 4 TDs, 1 pick. I mean, Oklahoma, and we should mention they didn't have Dylan Gabriel in this one, but this was still, they were running the Wildcat at points in this game because they were just out of options. And, I mean, this should not just be the case at Oklahoma. There's still too much talent for this to be the situation that the Sooners have found themselves in. 195 total yards, 11 first downs as a whole. This was from an ESPN story that I thought was wild. Quote, after a 55-24 loss to TCU last week, the Sooners have now lost back-to-back games by more than 30 points for the first time in school history. This is not just like a transition year. This is one of those where you're like, oh, this is this is bad, where there's losing and there's going through some tumultuous times, but this is not taking over Rutgers, taking over Minnesota, taking over even Nebraska. This is Oklahoma, and I understand that Lincoln Riley took a lot of talent with him to USC. I understand that. They kept a lot of talent, and they did pretty well in the portal. Like, there's a reason that they were a preseason top 10 team. If we were really worried about the talent drain from the Oklahoma transfers, we would have been like, oh, they're going to be lucky to get 6-6. Like, this is just a little insurmountable. But no, there was playoff talk. I have the receipts. I can pull up the pieces on, like, Oklahoma should be a playoff team. Dylan Gabriel should be a Heisman candidate. Like, all the stuff was right there where we were like, oh, this is going to be a great Oklahoma team. I think it's more. I think this really does fall on the coaching more than anything. And I think Brent Venables is, I mean, it's still, like we just said with Brian Kelly, year one, but it's bad. And I think there is a line where, like, he's teetering towards that line of, like, is he bad enough where we just can't afford to let their brand diminish this much over a cultural change from I don't know. I'm concerned. I'm quite concerned. What do you make of the current state of those Sooners?
See, that's where I disagree with you, because I think we just have to recalibrate our expectations. Like, the preseason polls, like, we should know by now, like, not to put too much emphasis in these preseason polls. Like, their name is Oklahoma. That brand name is why they got playoff talk and why they were preseason top 10 and why me and you on this podcast before the season were like, yeah, they could still easily be the best team in the Big 12. Like, it's Oklahoma. But with what Lincoln Riley actually took to USC with him and with just other guys that left the program, this was not just the, come in and just keep the ball rolling like Ryan Day coming into Ohio State, or like Lincoln Riley first taking over for Bob Stoops. Like, it became a rebuild once Lincoln Riley just took everything with him, essentially, when he went to USC, everything he wanted at least. So I think it's unfair to say, to panic too much, because on the outside it didn't feel like a rebuild, but I think we should kind of take a second look. I go, okay, maybe this was more of a rebuild than we kind of gave this credit for to start the season. And you basically took all of my Texas-Oklahoma stats. I'm not going to blame you for it, but you basically took all of them except, so you had the 1965 part. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what year it went back to, but I saw it was a 311 game streak that went back to 1965 of them being shut out. And also the one last stat I had was this was the worst loss ever to Texas, 49-0. So yeah, it's definitely bad, but like I said, it's year one. The only thing that concerns you more, like with LSU, you're talking like Brian Kelly has done this. He built Cincinnati into a powerhouse, like, or not powerhouse, but going to a BCS bowl as about as powerhouse as a Group of 5 school gets. Took Notre Dame from the cellar to multiple playoff appearances, a BCS title game appearance. Like, he's got a proven track record, so like you can't just overreact to year one. Brent Venables, it's not nearly as a sure thing of like, oh, just give him some time. He's going to work this out. You've never seen him as a head coach. And it's also a guy who's like turned down being a head coach for like a decade. And so it kind of makes you want, oh, why was this guy turning down head coach? Does he have the confidence to be a head coach? Like, you could start to kind of hear whispers here and there. But like you said, they're 3-3 right now. And the Big 12 feels like a really good conference. Like, they have not gotten to a lot of the good teams on this schedule. They still have to play Baylor. They still have to play Oklahoma State. Like, even Texas Tech beat this Texas team that just absolutely beat the brakes off of them. I would be very worried if I was an Oklahoma fan. But on the other side of Texas, I'm just going to say what everybody's thinking and doesn't want to say. We were all rooting against Quinn Ewers, right? We saw the hair. We saw, like, who the hell is this guy? Like, went to Ohio State for like a payday for a year, then came back to Texas. So many people were rooting against Quinn Ewers. I'll say it. That mullet was just awful. Like, I feel like it looks better now than it did when he's coming out of high school, but maybe it's just because I respect Quinn Ewers now more. But seeing this dude play, he is the real deal. Like, he makes Texas a legit contender. I think coming back in 2023, Like Texas is going to be like a preseason top 5, top 10 team just because of Quinn Ewers alone. Like he's a superstar as far as I'm concerned. Like he's everything he was advertised to be.
Quinn Ewers is awesome, and Texas is legit. Like if you go back and there's a case that if Quinn never gets hurt, they're undefeated right now. I definitely think so. I think it's I mean, they'd be number 2, number 1 maybe right now if they'd beat Alabama. There's, especially considering how that game was going. Like we don't know that they beat up by multiple scores, but I mean they scored 19 points in the game, or they held Alabama to 20 points, I should say. Like they could have, with the way they were moving the ball with Quinn Ewers in that first quarter. Like who knows how much they could have beaten Bama by that day. Yeah, Texas is back. Let me just go ahead and say that. I will say though, I'm curious. Texas is back. Like Sark has this thing humming. They're in good shape, and the defense is legit at Texas now.
Can they win the Big 12? They only have the one loss. Everybody plays everybody. They got the loss to Texas Tech. They don't even necessarily have a tiebreaker loss to anybody right now. If you kind of consider
who they have Kansas State, where is that?
With Kansas State, TCU, and Oklahoma State kind of being at the top of the conference right now. I mean, it's...
Ooh, guess what? I don't like it, because do you know what they have back-to-back?
What's that?
So they get Iowa State at home this week. That's good. Then the next week, they go to Oklahoma State, and then to Kansas State back-to-back. I don't like it.
That's tough.
I don't think they get through both those undefeated.
But I feel it looks like, I think Kansas State, they do have a bye week in between.
They do have a bye, so that's nice.
We'll see. I like this team with Quinn Ewers. Like they have a whole different ceiling when he's healthy.
You know what I don't like? Baylor on the 25th. You know where that should be? The A&M Aggies. That's what that game should be, on the 25th. But no, true. Shout out to the Texas Longhorns, who are an extremely good football team. I will say this, though, with Oklahoma's schedule, they get Kansas at home this week. If they get blown out by Kansas at home, Matt Green, they continue the streak. They get blown out at home by Kansas. And then they're 3-4. Let's say they go to Iowa State and win, 4-4. Lose at home to Baylor, 4-5.
We're gonna count at Iowa State as a win right now for Oklahoma. I can't guarantee anything for this team.
I mean, at West Virginia, I guess, isn't it? Oklahoma State at home. That's the one I'm circling. If they get blown out and if they lose to Oklahoma State and that prevents them from going to a bowl, I think Venables is out. I don't think 5-7, especially 4-8. I think 4-8 you're out. 5-7 with a blowout loss to your rival at home, getting ready to move to the SEC. I don't know. I don't know if you can survive it at Oklahoma. It's just too big of a brand.
I don't think you can fire anybody after 1 year.
4-8
at 3-3, it's definitely possible they go 3-3 with these next 6.
I mean, if Kirby went 4-8 year one, do you think Georgia fires him?
No, I don't think so.
3-9.
It's year one. I mean, 3-9 is terrible, but especially when you consider an SEC schedule with like three cupcakes. Most likely, I guess he had North Carolina in that year one, but yeah, 3-9 obviously is terrible, but you just can't fire a guy after 1 year. There's just, especially in this era of the transfer portal, like just so many things, just so many moving parts.
If he's not fired, then he's gonna have to clean house. Like everyone's out. Like you're gonna have to like clear out and start over on the whole staff front.
I think year one's just a mulligan year. You just can't draw conclusions from year one. Like Nick Saban went 6-7 year one. Like you can have a losing record year one and like.
I mean, that's with the bowl.
Up.
I'm just saying, man, it's different. You are in dangerous territory when you take over.
It's not good. That's for sure. This is way worse than we thought.
Yes, I think I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's going to be a conversation to monitor over the course of the next several weeks. Purdue, Maryland. Purdue survives late. There were 4 touchdowns in the final 7 minutes and 47 seconds of this game. Purdue gets the big road win as they further cement themselves as the team of the West in the Big Ten. There was a late reversal in this one that just cost the Terps in really horrific circumstances at home. They got the 2-point conversion, called back for a lineman downfield, which I don't know if I've ever seen on a 2-point conversion. They get another shot. Incomplete. Doesn't happen. But Maryland wasn't going to win this game and didn't deserve to when they could not score. They had 0 points on 3 Purdue second-half turnovers. When you get gifted 3 turnovers in the second half and you get 0 points out of that, you don't deserve to win the football game. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think you got to get points off turnovers. This Purdue team, they just keep finding a way. Like they each week, it comes down to the wire. It's like they're just like the cardiac Boilermakers. If I don't have a catchy alliteration for that one. But yeah, I was impressed. We weren't sure if Aiden O'Connell was going to play in this game, but he ended up powering through. And yeah, big time win. They look like you said, with that win over Minnesota last week, they look like the best team in the Big Ten West.
Maryland just cannot beat anybody in the Big Ten West. For whatever reason, they just can't do it.
And they're damn sure not beating anyone in the Big Ten East.
That's true. I mean, it's
so maybe Rutgers.
Maryland taking the Big Ten money, man. Just what a time. Like, I think they'd be a pretty solid top-tier ACC program the last couple of years. And just not a possibility in the Big Ten. It just... I don't know. That's tough.
And is there anyone that is more Atlantic Coast than Maryland? It's like they even have the whole crab and seafood thing going for them. Like they're so Atlantic Coast. They're right in the middle of all of those teams going down the entire East Coast. But no, they're in Big Ten country.
There you go.
But I'm pretty sure their athletic program wouldn't exist if they didn't go to the Big Ten. From what it sounds like, sounds like they really needed the money.
I mean, hey, that's what they're doing. USC, UCLA, jumping on it. It's just follow the money, folks. UGA, Auburn, the Dogs blow out Auburn in the second half of this one. Robbie Ashford, 13 of 38 for 165 passing yards. He had a crazy fumble as he's running up the middle of the field on a QB draw and just fumbles behind him, and he got really upset after that one happened in this one. You were at this game, so I'm curious to find out about your day in Athens and your awesome seats and being able to take in another beatdown of Auburn, who it's just these games have not been close for 6 years now. Auburn just could not do anything on offense. They can't run the ball. Tank Bigsby has just not been a factor all year long. No one gets open for this receiving core at Auburn. But the weirdest stat about this and Auburn this whole year is Auburn's only given up 2 touchdown passes through the air. And this one, Georgia, almost all their touchdowns. Were all of them on the ground in this one?
They were. This is the third straight game for Georgia without a passing touchdown. Which is interesting because I think they're 10th right now in passing yards per game in college football. But yeah, just another trip to the state of Georgia for Auburn and another game without scoring more than 10 points. So it's I think this is like the 10th straight. No, maybe not 10. Maybe it's not that many. Maybe like 6th or 7th straight trip to the state of Georgia without scoring more than 10. So yeah, it just. I like you said, I was at this game. Actually, the first time I've ever gone to Athens and gone downtown and then went to a Georgia game in my whole life. Like, might sound kind of weird, but usually you just kind of go tailgate and then drink some beers, then go into the game. But yeah, we actually went downtown. It was pretty fun. Got down there pretty early and then made the trek in there into the game. And I also discovered in like the first quarter, maybe the second quarter of this game, that Tori just like does not understand point spreads at all. She's in this pick'em, and she's in second place in this pick'em group, by the way, out of like 17 people. And she just doesn't. Each week, I feel like I have this conversation of the point spreads, and so we're sitting there like 14-0. Second quarter, I'm like, at this rate, it's going to be 28-0. They're not going to cover 29 and a half, and she's like, what do you mean? 29? They have to win by 30? I was like, yes, that's the whole thing. Like that's the point spread. So have to keep having this conversation. Maybe she'll understand it one day. And so it was just funny because even not knowing how the spread thing worked, she still picked the right one, and Georgia did win this game. Was it 42-10? Was that the final? But yeah, it was good to see Georgia. Finally get back to running the ball. I think that's what everyone's wanted to see. Kendall Milton in this one, this guy now is in his third year on campus at Georgia, just can't seem to stay healthy. watching it live, in person, I kind of thought he got benched because he really hasn't done much for Georgia this year. I think he's the leading rusher, but Georgia's rushing game just hasn't been very good. But it was, I think, like a hamstring that he only got 2 carries in this one. So you got to see a lot of Dejon Edwards, which I think a lot of Georgia fans wanted to see a lot of Dejon Edwards. After last week in the fourth quarter versus Missouri, he was really the one that finally got the running game going. He had 12 carries for 83 yards and 3 touchdowns in this one. And then Branson Robinson, the true freshman, with 12 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown. And also dual threat Stetson Bennett, sir. I know you saw this man. Was a 64-yard touchdown. Absolutely moving. Stetson Bennett even had 60-plus yards rushing in this game. So Georgia almost rushed for 300 yards on the ground. So, and then still efficient through the air. A.D. Mitchell was supposed to be back for this one, so I think he was healthy, but I guess maybe Georgia wanted to save him unless they needed him type of thing. So I'm not even sure he played in this game. But the only thing I will complain about from Georgia's performance is that Brock Bowers just needs to get the ball more. Like you look at a running back in college football or just the best playmaker on the team. Even like you look at Devontae Smith's Heisman year, like you the best player on your team, on your offense, needs to touch the ball double-digit times every single game. And if Brock Bowers is that, hand him the ball, throw screens to him. Like he had 6 targets in this one, so they obviously were making an effort to get him. And Stetson Bennett overthrew him when he was wide open on what would have been like a 50-yard touchdown when he beat his man deep. So Stetson Bennett did miss a couple deep throws early in this one, but Bowers ends the game with 2 catches for 36 yards. But like I said, 6 targets. That's simply not enough in my book. Like I think this guy should get double-digit touches. If you can't get him the ball through the air, like just hand the thing to him. He's that good of a playmaker. And I'd like to see Georgia just get Bowers just more involved, especially with the struggles they've had in the red zone recently. Like this game, you did not see those same struggles. They were able to get touchdowns every time they got in the red zone. But yeah, Bowers needs to just being used like a running back, like the teams use their best receiver. Like just go to this guy. He changes this Georgia offense.
Well, do you feel better about Georgia than you did the last 2 weeks now?
Oh, I think you have to. I mean, you're not going to learn much from Auburn. Like Auburn's not a good team, but that's why you need to destroy them. Like Missouri's not a good team. That's why you need to go on the road and take care of business. So. You definitely feel better about just winning this type of blowout. Georgia's got, I think, Vanderbilt next week before the bye, and then the Florida game. So you wanted to see another you beat Vanderbilt by 49 points. Like that also doesn't mean anything. So you wanted to see another good performance before playing Florida in the cocktail party. But yeah, also another fun fact for you. I did some, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Did some data, did some crunching of the numbers, and I discovered that I have never seen the Georgia Bulldogs lose a game in person that wasn't in the cocktail party. So every game I've seen at Kentucky and at Tennessee, I think that was 2010 and 2011, and then every other game I've seen at Sanford Stadium. Never seen Georgia lose. But my 2 trips to the cocktail party, the Joe Tereshinski game and the Faton Bauta game, maybe that's the case. I just need to see Georgia with their actual starting quarterback and not a backup quarterback. But yeah, I've seen Florida play 3 times, and I've never seen Florida lose. Seen twice in the cocktail party, and then me and my buddy actually saw Florida South Carolina one year down in the swamp. And I've never seen Florida lose, and the only team I've ever seen Georgia lose to is Florida.
Interesting. Okay.
So I need to go to more games, I guess.
Hey, as someone who goes to a lot of college football games and a lot of just college sports games as a whole, go do it. It's fun. It's a good time. It's a good way to spend some time. Congrats to you, Matt Green, on a big win, and we'll see what happens this week. Who does Georgia have this week?
Vanderbilt.
Okay, well, okay.
And I'm real bummed about the Vanderbilt 3:30 slot, or 4 o'clock or 3:30. It's like I think it might be the exact same time as Alabama, Tennessee, but Yeah, real disappointed about that. Vanderbilt, you didn't knock that one out at noon. I think it's probably because Georgia fans have been complaining so much about the noon kickoffs, like feeling like the SEC was attacking them with the noon slate or whatever. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't apply to Vanderbilt. Like, just get that one out of the way. I want to watch the rest. We have a ridiculous slate of college football this week, so I hate that I'm going to have to be going back and forth. I might just have to set up the second TV this weekend.
This is the second TV week.
I think it is because it's like the Georgia Tech week. It's like the second. It's the second TV week because you're like, I have to watch my team, but this is not going to be nearly one of the best games going on.
There you go. Utah UCLA. UCLA beats Utah 42-33. DTR to ESPN quote, this was from the story. The fifth-year senior said during the week leading up to the game that he had something to prove against the Utes, who had handedly won 5 straight in the series by an average of 27 points. Like, Utah owned them, and we're just beating the Bruins out of the building. This is the Bruins' first 6-0 start since 2005, Matt Green. They haven't lost, so their streak goes further than that, my friend. They've won 9 straight games going back to last year. It's their longest win streak since 97-98. Everything coming up 98. UCLA,
Hold on.
Tennessee.
Is that the longest win streak in college football? 9 straight? That's got to be, right? Because, Alabama lost in the season. Georgia lost SEC championship. And then
I think it's Clemson.
Okay, that makes sense.
I feel like it's Clemson. I feel like remembering a stat that Clemson, I'm pretty sure it's Clemson, but I could be wrong. It won't be by much, but I'm pretty sure Clemson has the most.
Clemson's working with.
But while you're doing that, that's their longest streak since they won 20 straight in 97 through 98. So UCLA, though, the thing is everyone's going to point to DTR, and rightfully so. He's been incredible for the Bruins, so shout out to him. He should be in the Heisman conversation right now. But it's the defense. Like, they're in the 40s now in points per game given up. Like, the defense is much improved. It's caught up to the offense. They're getting enough stops to win these big games against the Utahs of the world and the Washingtons. And look, back-to-back, that's huge wins. Both at home, both big wins, but you took care of business. The Bruins are awesome. So I like when the Bruins are good. I hope more and more folks come out and watch. But shout out to Chip Kelly and what they're doing over there in LA, because the Bruins are, I think, if they're not a top 10 team, they're a top 15 team, and I don't see that changing throughout the course of the year. I think they're legit. What did you make of it, Matt Green?
Yeah, I was definitely impressed with UCLA. Also, Clemson, you were correct, into the season on a 6-game winning streak. Yeah. So they're up to 12 straight. But yeah, I think UCLA, this Utah defense doesn't look like the typical stifling defense necessarily that they've been in years past, but I think this was by far the biggest test UCLA has had to this point, and to see DTR. I was confusing the acronym there.
TLDR.
To see DTR play the way he did, and also Charbonnet on the ground. They absolutely ran all over Utah. So I think. Man, this UCLA USC game. I'm just hoping these teams can run the slate until Thanksgiving weekend, and that's just looking to be a very intriguing matchup there at the end of the season. I went back to 2005, like you said, their last 6-0 start, and who do you remember from the 2005 team? They got two NFL players. One guy. I feel like he's been retired for a decade now at this point. And the other one I heard catch a pass today in the NFL. I had no idea he was still in the league. So
Maurice Jones-Drew?
Maurice Jones-Drew. Yeah, that was the first one. He's been retired
for a while, yeah.
For a while. So the tight end on that UCLA team. You think you can tell me who it is?
He caught a pass today?
He caught a pass today. And even the guy on Red Zone was like, so-and-so sighting, had no idea he was still in the league. He was a first-round pick, I want to say, back in the day.
I have no idea. Who?
Mercedes Lewis.
Oh, Mercedes.
He's still around.
He blocks well. I feel like that dude's been blocking for 10 years. He keeps getting picked. Hey, shout out to Mercedes Lewis. I forgot he was a Bruin, so there you go.
Yeah,
I like it. Good
that blue visor. That blue visor is always so sick. Him and Maurice Jones-Drew rocked it. But yeah, so... have the little visions of the early Carl Durrell days, not the current Carl Durrell days, but the good ones back at UCLA.
There you go. UNC takes care of Miami on the road. UNC, Matt Green, is 5-1. Do you remember a weirder 5-1 Power 5 college football team in the last couple of years than UNC right now?
No, I cannot. 5-1, I was also surprised by that. We made the joke of them being on their way to a Sun Belt conference title after their Sun Belt heavy schedule to start the season. But yeah, they keep finding ways to win. Like every single game of theirs just comes down to the wire. And I think other than last week, versus Virginia Tech, but yeah, I would really start to panic if I'm a Miami fan. Like we were talking about with Brent Venables, this is year one of Mario Cristobal, but the talent at Miami, like it didn't feel like a typical rebuild. It felt like, okay, Manny Diaz is getting some talent here. We need a coach that can coach it up and also get more talent, because that's Cristobal's best quality he has really is as a recruiter. So it is year one, and we don't want to freak out over year one, but this is kind of that same formula where you were talking about Oklahoma. Like, even though it is year one, people were talking like this was a legitimate contender to win the ACC this year. They had Tyler Van Dyke, like they had the big-time quarterback and everything. And, he played better in this game, but, having to throw the ball 57 times, like you're not going to win many football games like that. Like 42 yards on the ground on 24 carries, like, yeah, Mike Leach might be able to win games with 42 yards on the ground. Like, that is not how Mario Cristobal, that's not how Miami wants to play. Like, I don't know. I said the same thing about Venables, like, let's not overreact, and I'm overreacting about Miami on the flip side. But it's also because Venables is in year one as a new head coach. Like, Mario Cristobal, like, he's an experienced coach. Like, he should be a guy that can have a program, not have to take a step back before we can take a step forward. So North Carolina, as good as this offense has been, they've been a very inconsistent team this year, even though they are 5-1, like you said. And it feels like each week it's getting worse and worse for the Hurricanes. So, and looking at this schedule, like it doesn't seem like it's going to get much better either. Like they haven't necessarily reached the toughest part of this schedule yet.
The Tar Heels are going to be like the worst 10-2, most fraudulent 10-2 team of all. Like they're going to find their way into a New Year's Six bowl against someone really good and just get pounded by somebody. But I don't know. I mean, shout out to Mac Brown for keeping this thing humming and bouncing back. Like I'm not as worried. Like if I had to pick between the two, Mario or Brent, I think I'm far more concerned about Brent Venables than I am Mario Cristobal to this point. Like Tyler Van Dyke also bounced back in this one. He completed 74% of his passes. 3 TDs, like he could have imploded. He almost threw for 500 yards in this UNC secondary, which, I mean, the UNC defense is horrible, but as you alluded to, I don't know how they only ran for 42 yards on the ground. Van Dyke did have a terrible pick to end this one that iced it for the Heels, but, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a tougher rebuild right now than Oklahoma, and I think the panic meter for me of all the rocky first year one coaches, I think my panic meter is still the highest of highs for Brent Venables, and I think the other guys like Kelly and Mario, I'm not there yet.
I think that's fair, and it's at least like Oklahoma has been a top tier program for years and years. Miami has not, so it's guy coming year one to expect him to be at the top of the ACC might not have been the most realistic thing. So he does have time. I guess I'm coming from a person who's already skeptical of how good of a coach Cristobal is. And to have this, I mean, a guy we were literally talking about as being like a first-round draft pick, he could potentially go in that Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud class of the draft. Like, it's like the same thing that happened at Oregon. It's like you had Justin Herbert, like this elite of elite quarterback, and that seems like a window you kind of have as a program when you have one of those elite quarterbacks. So it is year one. Don't want to overreact too much, but I have not liked what I've seen from the Hurricanes so far this year.
No.
It's just 3 weeks in a row, right?
Yes, but we'll see. We'll see. Wazoo, they go into Trojan country and come up just short. This was never really in doubt for the Trojans. They continue to remain undefeated here, right there at number 6 in the country. They shut out Alex Grinch's defense, shuts out Washington State and Cam Ward in the second half, which is impressive. I mean, a bunch of penalties by Washington State in this one. 11 penalties for 106 yards. And still, my favorite running stat of the college football season, USC has still not turned the ball over, and we're halfway down through the college football season. 0 turnovers through 6 weeks. It's insane.
Yeah, you're gonna win a lot of games if you never turn the ball over. That's for sure. If you just don't beat yourself, there's a lot of teams out there. I mean, Kirk Ferentz basically made his entire career off of just not beating ourselves, and eventually the other team will beat themselves. Doesn't always work out, but it works out enough to win, 70% of his games throughout his career. But I thought this was a tricky game because Washington State is a dangerous team. So for USC to really handle this game, just hold them, shut them out in the second half, like you said. I was really impressed with USC. A lot of pressure they were getting on Cam Ward in this game. He was having a run for his life. So, yeah, big time win. Caleb Williams, less than 200 yards passing, but still won this game by multiple scores. So, yeah, I was impressed with the Trojans.
Absolutely. Matt Green, kind of a surprise. This was probably the one I was most iffy on going in this weekend was BYU. In Vegas against Notre Dame. You hated these Notre Dame uniforms, but guess what? The Shamrock Series uniforms, they come out in style because guess what? The Notre Dame Fighting Irish win 28-20 as they really turned around their season the last couple weeks with Drew Pine under center for the Fighting Irish. Michael Mayer was gigantic in this one, tight end, 11 receptions for 118 yards from him. This was pretty cool. So, quote, this is from the AP Gamer after I thought was interesting. They said, quote, the Irish ran 73 offensive plays compared to BYU's 46. It's a lot. While they outgained the Cougars 496 to 280. It was Notre Dame's second highest production on offense this season after it tallied 576 yards in a 45-32 win at North Carolina on September 24th. I mean, the defense is coming back in full form. They really limited what Jaron Hall could do in this one. The defense is legit. They're figuring some stuff out, and Drew Pine's just solid. Notre Dame, they feel more complete, and they're figuring some stuff out midway through the 2022 season. So another year one coach, but I think things are they avoided disaster that it looked like they might be headed towards early on this season. I think Marcus Freeman deserves a lot of credit for steering the ship back around and getting a really big win in Vegas against the Cougs. What did you make of this one?
He's definitely turned the ship around because I think of all the year one head coaches, he inherited by far the best situation. Like that, your guy just got the biggest job in opening. I think that was on the market this year. I mean, maybe you could argue USC better than LSU, but LSU was one of those top tier jobs in college football. So you had a guy that's taking you to the playoff every other year, and you inherited a very good situation here. So to see them lose to Marshall and kind of mess around like they have early in the season, it was a little alarming. But yeah, like you said, they absolutely ran all over this BYU team. That's usually what BYU kind of has to their advantage, just being physical, having 25, 26-year-old grown men on their side of the line of scrimmage. But yeah, Notre Dame actually absolutely ran all over them. And I was glad you mentioned the play difference because time of possession, Notre Dame had the ball for almost 41 minutes to 19 for BYU. So that just huge difference in this game. But yeah, like you said, they look like Central Florida playing against BYU in this one with these uniforms that just unrecognizable of the tradition of the Fighting Irish like that I'm used to. But I'm the old man yelling at clouds over here. So, yeah, big-time win for Notre Dame. They needed to get back above 500.
Yeah, but there they are, and I think Notre Dame, they're in good shape the rest of the way. I'm more and more curious about Notre Dame USC later on this season. Bama survives again. A lot has been made about that last play call by Jimbo Fisher, where just Haynes King to the right. It wasn't open. He was staring down the wideout. I think it was Stewart the whole time. Wasn't open. Tried it anyway. Doesn't find him. Game over. Bama wins at home, and they escape yet again. Matt Green, I don't know. What was that last play call for you? Was that, I mean, just what did you make of the play call? What did you make of A&M coming up just short of pulling it off back-to-back years?
I, like most of America, thought it was just an awful play call, especially because Jimbo Fisher is the play caller and he's this offensive guru. It seems like, do you not have a Philly special, something you've been waiting to draw up for a 2-point play? Like, you're on the 2-yard line, or 3-yard line, one of the two. Like, you're right there. It seems like you should have had something better drawn up. But I will say, not to play, Monday morning quarterback, Chris Doering, storied NFL college football wide receiver on SEC Network, he did defend the play call. He said that the receiver kind of was impatient with the route he ran. He kind of needed to set it up better in order for that to be open. I kind of take Chris Doering's word for it, and just knowing Jimbo Fisher probably knows what he's doing more than I do, right? Probably. But on live, it looked like such a terrible play. And then you also heard Terrion Arnold, who I think emerged as probably as Alabama's best cover corner early in the season, because I've been very critical of Alabama's secondary. Terrion Arnold said he looked at Jimbo Fisher and he was just yelling, Evan, Evan, Evan. So he's like, I knew they were going to throw it to him, basically. So maybe A&M also tipped their play call there at the end. But it felt like, man, Alabama did absolutely everything that needed to happen in order to get upset. Like, just this is without Bryce Young, their Heisman-winning quarterback. But just how many times they put the ball on the ground. Just we've seen this Tennessee deep. Not to jump ahead to Tennessee, but like Tennessee's been getting pressure on the quarterback all year. Like, it seemed like every time that A&M actually got pressure on Milroe, they forced a fumble. So, and then you also saw Jace McClellan fumble in this one, and then just some of these A&M, these freshman receivers just absolutely making just incredible catches. Like, it felt like last year that was like A&M is just playing above their ability right now. Like, not saying Evan Stewart, because that's why he's the advertised 5-star prospect, but like Haynes King was just under ridiculous pressure this entire game. I think, and that's at the end of the day, I think that's why that final play doesn't work. Like, Will Anderson was absolutely living in the backfield, and not just Will Anderson. It seemed like he had about 2 seconds to throw the entire game, and Haynes King was athletic enough to actually, keep some plays alive. But with the amount of pressure Alabama was getting, just play in and play out, like it was going to be difficult to beat them. I was shocked that they just kind of kept them in it for 4 quarters, just continued to beat themselves. The one thing I'll say is that play at the very end, that was definitely a pass interference. If I'm not mistaken, you didn't think that was pass interference on that last play?
I'm just not calling it. I don't like that ever being called in the last play. I like
the defense can't just do whatever they want because it's the last play, though.
I kind of err on the side that, like, unless it's really, really outrageous.
Well, the dude was grabbing the jersey. I think you could clearly see that he was interfering, but regardless,
unless this affects Tennessee, and if it affects Tennessee,
that interference occurred with like 6-7 seconds left. So the guy intercepts it in the back of the end zone, takes a couple steps, knees it. Now there's 3 seconds. Then when we run that play back and they get the one play from the 2-yard line, there's only 3 seconds left. And if the interference occurs with 6-7 seconds left, like, to my knowledge, that's how much time should be on the clock. So if there's 6 or even 7 seconds left, A&M gets 2 plays from the 2-yard line. I think that had a huge impact on the end of this game. And I could be wrong. Maybe it's supposed to be 3 seconds, but I think there should have been more time on the clock.
Interesting. Who cares? They lost. A&M shouldn't have won this game because, like, they had opportunities. Like, I just, man, 4 turnovers from Bama. 2 missed field goals. Bama kickers are back.
2 missed field goals, yeah.
Bama kickers, they're back. And you didn't take care of business. And I will say, this Jimbo quote is the most Jimbo quote of all time. Did you see what he said after the game?
No, I don't think I did.
He said, quote, "We're playing the backup quarterback too," Fisher said. "2 good teams locked up and battled and went at it, and we showed what we're capable of." Haynes King started the season, my friend. It's not a backup quarterback. Like, Max Johnson's out for the year, but, like, that was your backup. Max Johnson came in for Haynes King. That's not the same thing as Jaden Milroe stepping in for Alabama. It's not the same. It
kind of is, though, because he got benched. So the guy that they determined was the better quarterback is Max Johnson. So he is still the backup.
But that's just like, all right, then why did you start him to begin with? Why was Haynes King the starter in week 1?
Like, Dwan Mathis started the 2020 season for Georgia. And when he came in in that Florida game, he was the backup quarterback coming in, and he clearly had no business being the quarterback at the University of Georgia. The other missed opportunity, like you said, 4 turnovers, 2 missed field goals from Alabama. Also, to start the third quarter, coming out the very first play of the third quarter, just one of the worst throws you'll see. Jalen Milroe just hits the corner absolutely in the chest, and A&M couldn't take advantage of an early interception there. And, I mean, that was Alabama's only touchdown drive in the second half. So another missed opportunity there. So Alabama, maybe this is just – maybe we should interpret this as a strength of Alabama's, that they can make all these mistakes, have their backup quarterback, and still beat, well, what's now looking like one of the worst teams in the SEC West, but maybe one of the middle teams. I don't know. It's a quality SEC West opponent. And so maybe it really just tells you how good this Alabama team is, that they get Bryce Young back, and things are just back to normal. But it's also interesting, like we saw the national championship versus Georgia in 2017. The SEC championship the following year in 2018, like, backup quarterback had to come in and they didn't miss a beat. Like, right now, this team seems very reliant on Bryce Young. Like, they do not seem nearly as deep as they were in past years. Like, you heard the whole offseason talking point of, if John Mechie and Jamison Williams are healthy, then they win the national championship. So to have their entire season hinge on the health of 2 wide receivers in 2021, and now maybe the entire season hinge on the health of the quarterback in 2022, that's just not the Alabama we're used to. We're used to just the next man up, regardless of who's out. It doesn't really matter. The guy behind him's a 5-star, and he's a future NFL player. Right now, maybe they're not as immune to adversity as they have been in the past.
Absolutely. Last game here real quick. We had FSU. I said Matt Green going in this weekend. I felt like the Florida State fire had fizzled. I felt like it was out. I felt like the loss to Wake really could lead to a slide here. Now they got Clemson ahead this week. I mean, this is a game you cannot lose. Another one where you had NC State on the ropes. Devin Leary was out of this football game due to injury, and they could not take care of business. Wolfpack win 19-17. Florida State shut out in the second half 16-0. Like, that can't happen. 2 picks in the final 7 minutes for Jordan Travis. I mean, the backups for Devin Leary, Jack Chambers, and Thayer Thomas went 1-2 for -5 yards after Devin Leary went out. None of it mattered. Florida State still could not take care of business and really get that. I mean, LSU was cool at the beginning of the year, but, like, you have to get the big ACC Tier 2 wins, Tier 1. Like, if you want to really show progress as a program, you cannot lose to Wake and then blow this game on the road at NC State the way you did. I mean, this is just back-to-back absolute gut punches if you're a Florida State fan, where you thought you might be turning the corner with Norvell, and now you're like, we're going to be lucky to get to 7-5. What did you make of it?
Yeah, without a doubt. This is just a missed opportunity with Devin Leary going out in this one, up 17-3 at the half. Scored 17 points in the second quarter. In the second half, they ran 23 plays for for 73 yards the entire half. They had 9 plays for 70 yards on the final drive. So before that, so their second half possessions, they went punt, 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 interception, interception. They got 70 of their 76 second half yards on that final drive. And yeah, big time props to NC State for stepping up the defense, getting it done when the offense kind of had to carry the load for the offense. This 1917 win, and I think that's why I was big on this NC State team coming into this season, because they brought all the starters back on defense and a potential dark horse Heisman candidate at quarterback who hasn't really played like that so far. But yeah, you see him go down, and for NC State to still pull this out, it's a big time win for NC State. I won't say it doesn't mean anything. Losing to Clemson is going to really define their season, because they essentially have a 2-game lead on them in the ACC Atlantic. But I mean, NC State, they could position themselves for sure to make a power New Year's Six bowl. So I mean, that's where the ceiling, I feel like, is for this program now, that the ACC championship is most likely out of reach. Obviously, there's a lot of time left, but I don't think many of us seen Clemson losing 2 more games at this point. But yeah, big time win for NC State to pull this out and survive. But yeah, more importantly, just such a missed opportunity for Florida State.
A couple other ones we should run through real quick as we wrap up here on a Sunday night, my friend. We had Oregon State win with 13 seconds remaining on a go-ahead TD. The Cardiac Beavs moved to 4-2. 0-4 in the Pac-12 for David Shaw.
Was there a name for the that Vikings Saints play a few years back, the Stephon Diggs?
I feel like there was.
Like the Minneapolis Miracle or something like that. That was definitely was this in Corvallis? Was it in Oregon
this was
State?
in Stanford, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Definitely had shades of that Minneapolis Miracle. Like, that was just, oh man. I just don't understand how that kind of thing happens. Like, The Viking Saints one seemed like a straight up video game. Like the guy pressed the hit stick when the receiver came in and he didn't make a play on the ball. This was like the safety just came over and helped and just kind of watched the play happen, and an absolute ridiculous catch and run. But yeah, that was a classic college football play. I'm mad at myself. Shouldn't be too hard on myself, because I had a long day of college football. Passed out on this one was like second, third quarter. But I saw it the next day. But yeah, crazy finish.
Chanticleers stay perfect at UL Monroe. 6-0 Chanticleers. 9-6 Illinois takes down Iowa. Another great Iowa effort in this one. Illinois quietly 5-1. Brett Bielema doing great work in Champaign. We had
Iowa is literally the opposite of Texas A&M. Like,
yes.
A&M seems to find a way to win these games, and they scored 10, 13 points. But Iowa, they should probably try to find a way to win these games if their strategy is going to be score 10 points a game.
Georgia Tech, undefeated since moving on from Jeff Collins. They might go bowling. They move up to 3-3 on the season. They beat Duke at home. Let's see.
How many wins does Brent Key need to be the head coach?
He's not keeping that job.
If Georgia Tech goes to a bowl game, Brent Key will be the next head coach.
I don't think so.
I don't know. How?
That's Ed Orgeron stuff. You are the Ed Orgeron preacher. Brent Key's an Ed Orgeron type guy there. You have been the leader in this don't fall in love with the interim tag.
But LSU, first of all, they got a national championship out of Ed Orgeron, so even that has to be considered a success. Ed Orgeron, even if he didn't make it much longer than that. But Georgia Tech just does not have the cachet of like going out and getting. Also, if they wouldn't have given Ed Orgeron the job, they probably would have hired what's his name that went to Texas, right? I'm blanking on his name right now. Herman. Herman. Yeah, because he was like the hottest name out there at that time. But I mean, Georgia Tech's just not going to get the hot name. So if Brent Key, like, this is a guy who took a lateral move as Alabama's offensive line coach to be Georgia Tech's offensive line coach, like, that's a lateral move that you just do not see. This guy's a Georgia Tech guy through and through. Like, I think if he actually gets some wins, some positivity in the program, like I wouldn't rule out Brent Key for a second. Like, can they really get Deion Sanders or I don't know, like who's the best guy that Georgia Tech can really get that wants to go to Georgia Tech?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not even close to being there if you're Georgia Tech. Wisconsin 42-7 over Northwestern. Northwestern falls to 1-5. Wisconsin 5 TDs for Graham Mertz this week. So maybe they may have something with Jim Leonard. Now he is an interim that I think has a very real shot of keeping that job. Georgia Southern battle for Southern Not State, and Georgia State takes care of Georgia Southern 41-33. The Thurs
State Not Southern.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Louisville gets a much-needed win. Virginia falls to 0-3 in ACC play, 34-17. Florida survives late against Mizzou to move to 24. They win 24-17. They moved to 4-2. Mississippi State crushes Arkansas 40-17. That was I picked Mississippi State, but Arkansas, man, 3-3. They're not going to finish last in the SEC West, but their schedule, if you look at it, I don't know, man. This is a down year, I think, for Arkansas, unfortunately, for the last year at KJ Jefferson.
Speaking of a team that's just absolutely reliant on the quarterback, they're a completely different team without KJ Jefferson, I think.
For sure.
You saw it, yeah. No, they weren't. This wasn't even competitive.
Mississippi State, Georgia at the end of the year is going to be quite interesting in Starkville.
For all the talk about Georgia's schedule coming into this season, there are potentially 5 current ranked teams on Georgia's schedule. They've played Oregon, who's number 12 right now. Like they'll have to play most likely Alabama if they get to the SEC championship. You get Tennessee at 6, Mississippi State at 16, Kentucky in there. Like this Georgia schedule might be a little sneaky good. This Mississippi State, that game in Starkville. I mean, that could be, depending on how Mississippi State's season goes, like, you know how they like to look for an opportunity to go to those locations that they don't go to a lot. Like, Mississippi State hosting Georgia could be a big one.
For sure. Arizona State stuns Washington 45-38. An awful look from Arizona State uniform-wise. I don't know what those monstrosities were. They have great uniforms. Why is Sparky not on every helmet that they're ever wearing? Like, Arizona State has a great color combo. It's unique. They have the great Sun Devil mascot. This is not that hard. I don't know what did you see what they were wearing for this one against UW?
Were these like throwbacks or something?
I think so. And they were horrible.
Yeah, that does not look like Arizona State.
No.
Like, they got to have the bright yellow in there or something to be
Give
Arizona
me Sparky.
State.
He's got to be on there.
Fun fact, do you know who Sparky was designed to look like?
I do not.
The inspiration for the Sun Devil mascot was Walt Disney. The guy, it was a former disgruntled Disney employee that was not a big fan of Walt Disney, and his inspiration for a literal devil logo was Walt Disney.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Fun fact for you. But, I mean, I guess they're not even using that one like they used to.
I mean, they have. It still pops up. I mean, I think
they go with that pitchfork usually now.
I don't know. You need to bring him back. Bring Sparky back. Last one real quick. Shane Beamer beats Kentucky without Will Levis on the road 24-14. I guess this is a signature win for that program. I mean, no Will Levis was a big part of this. It's fine. They won it. But as a friend of the pod, Ryan Shempard said on Twitter, is every win an emotional win for Shane Beamer? Like, you see the post-game thing.
I was waiting for this.
Everyone's emotional. Like, he's in there and he's just pumped up, and it's just like everything is so emotional and do or die. It's just like, all right, can you just get a win? Can it just be normal? You need to have a normal win at some point. Every win's emotional for Beamer's Gamecocks. And no shade there, but, I mean, I guess there's a little shade.
There's so much shade there. What are you talking about? I knew you were going to mention this on the pod because I saw this video and some of my friends were like just clowning Shane Beamer. One of my guys in the group thread is a Clemson fan. And so obviously you don't like South Carolina either. But I'm all for it. Like, just get hype after a win. Like South Carolina, how many of these do you have? Really,
They do this every win. Every win is like
you
this.
You got to celebrate your wins. You beat a ranked team. Maybe they didn't have Will Levis, but on the road too. Like, this is a big time win for South Carolina. And you need to just take it easy. They're not on Tennessee's level, you know. They got to celebrate what they can. The Gamecocks. I don't dislike it. I feel like everyone's so critical of Shane Beamer these days and his social media presence. But yeah, the team was getting hype. I was getting hype, honestly, watching it. Like, I'm all for it.
I am not here for it whatsoever. Can't do it. It needs to end at some point, and hopefully with a 45-70. Did you hear about this? They were co-coach of the years last year. Did you see that?
I've heard you mention that once or twice. The last one you didn't mention that I wanted to bring up, somehow staying undefeated in conference play. Wait, they are. Now I'm questioning that they are undefeated in conference play.
Who are we talking about?
They are. Kansas State Wildcats, 10-9, absolutely just escaped versus Iowa State. They feel like a ticking time bomb. At some point, they're going to drop a game. But I wish I was shouting out the right person. I want to say it was Stuart Mandel. But someone tweeted out that Adrian Martinez was having like the most Eric Crouch season of all time. And it just has to be even doubly brutal for Nebraska fans out there. Like, the way Adrian Martinez is exactly how Nebraska fans want their quarterback to play. But yeah, winning games 10-9, Kansas State, it's only a matter of time, I think, till they drop one in the Big 12.
Me quitting the Wildcats was the best thing that ever happened to this program. Like, me just being like, I'm out, I can't do this anymore. And I put them in the Big 12 title game before the year. And I'm looking like that's a great pick. But me leaving, I can't take credit anymore because I left the bandwagon. I left when they were down and out. And ever since, they haven't lost a game.
And that's what you did. You don't deserve any credit for anything Kansas State does this point moving forward. But it was definitely an easier start to the schedule. Obviously, that Oklahoma win is a huge win. But yeah, they're about to go through the gauntlet. This next 3 weeks is gonna tell us what they're really made of at TCU, Oklahoma State at home, and then Texas at home. So we'll see. They are still unbeaten in the conference, even though they have that ugly loss to Tulane just sitting there. But they are 5-1 overall.
There you go. For that guy down there in Decula, Georgia, Matt Green. Follow on Twitter at Matt_W_Green. Follow myself at Chase_Thomas. Up here in Knoxville, Tennessee. That is all I've got, my friend. We'll be back. Preview Week 7, man. Week 7 on the horizon this week. An absolute just crazy affair here in Knoxville, Tennessee. College game day, SEC Nation. Everybody who is somebody in college football coming up for Tennessee, Alabama, where the city will burn whichever way that game goes. So very excited and also terrified for what lies ahead in the biggest week of Tennessee football, I mean, in my adult life. It's pretty wild that we're here, but very excited about what's to come this week because it's going to be Big Test Saturday. I don't know what you want to call this weekend, but big game Saturday. I don't know where we want to go, but there's a lot of powerhouse games where several teams will fall out of the top 10. I think.
Yeah, maybe Crossroads Saturday, something like that. It's gonna be big to see who the contenders and who the pretenders are, if you will.
Absolutely, Matt Green. I will talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.